So I just wanted to do a quick comparison between these two pens, and this is the Platinum Preppy and the Pilot Varsity. Each of these is a really cheap entry-level fountain pen. They both sell for about $3, so they're fairly obvious competitors to one another. This is a Varsity I've had for years, and I've had many over that course of time, and this is a brand new Preppy. Again, I've had many Preppies. I usually buy it in a medium. This is in a fine. So as for aesthetics and build quality go, I would say they're roughly similar. The Pilot Varsity is all black, at least in this design. It has that sort of pilot ball at the end of the clip, plastic clip. Has that kind of cool angular nib. It's obviously like the least expensive nib possibly to be sold, since this is a $3 pen, but I actually really like the angular look to it. And it has, see if we could catch the end here. It has this sort of stamped type look to it, which I think is actually quite cool. I have found that this nib tends to leak around the edges a lot. So while this pen is a really good pen to carry with you, I have gotten more ink on my fingers from this one than most of my fountain pens. The body is all plastic. The section is all plastic as well. And the one cool little thing here, which could be hard to see, is that there is if you look right here, yeah, right there is a window. So you can see that this one is about shot, but still working. As for the Preppy, obviously has a clear or demonstrated style body, and it does screw open, which is nice. So that means it is refillable using a cartridge. I guess you could put a converter in here, but I have never attempted that. This pen is popular as you convert it into an eyedropper, which means basically you fill up this piece with ink, then you screw it shut, and you have a capacity that is you know, maybe 3 or 4 times what you can get into the included cartridge. Again, aesthetically it's really similar. It's just that this is clear while this is blacked out. I actually really do prefer the clear of the Preppy. I've seen it ship without this logo on it, direct from Noodlers, and that is very cool. I would really like that, especially if you're going to do the ink dropper conversion. Section is, again, plastic and see-through, so it's very cool, and a very simple nib. Not quite as angular or like brutalist as the one on the Varsity, but still, I think it's pretty cool looking for a $3 pen. This one tends to stay cleaner and lose less ink around the edges than the Pilot. So I actually do prefer the Preppy over the Varsity from just a kind of a day-to-day carrying standpoint. I will say that this pen can be refilled, again, a cartridge or converter or eyedropper conversion, while the Varsity is not refillable, and this pen, just you buy it, you use it, you toss it. As for general writing goes, get some paper available. Start off with the Varsity. So this is an older one. It has a really nice blue-black ink to it, and it lays down a fairly heavy line. Has very little flex in the nib, so it's like the least fountain pen maybe I've ever used. But you can put down a fair bit of ink. It is not very smooth. It actually tends to be kind of scratchy unless you really have the right point down, and even then it's kind of scratchy and old-time feeling, even on this Rhodia paper. This is the Preppy in fine. And this is, obviously it's a fine, so it's, and it's quite fine for a fine. But it writes, I think, a lot nicer than the Varsity. And no problems with the ink keeping up, and ink flow is good. no real ink spillage out of the nib. So I think it really does a good job there. I happen to have a Preppy. This one has been converted. You can see this whole back is full. And this is the medium, just for a reference point. And there's the Preppy medium. It's a pretty nice medium. I feel like this is a very good example of what I think of as a medium and a very good example of what I think of as a fine. Although medium, I would say, is very true, where the fine is like on the fine side. Not quite an extra fine, but definitely on the fine side. I actually like this medium a lot. I think the fine is great for note taking, but it tends to feel a little bit scratchy and a little stingy with ink. So as for choosing between the two pens, I think it's kind of a no-brainer. The Platinum Preppy is my favorite fountain pen below $10, my favorite fountain pen below $3, and actually one of my favorite fountain pens regardless of the price. I think it's just like a very cool, very versatile pen and a great way to go. I think the Varsity has its positive attributes, and I'm glad it exists. It's just like, I don't really see a point in getting the Varsity when you could have the Preppy. I think the Preppy writes better, looks better, and you could do a whole lot more with it. Varsity is cool, especially as your first fountain pen, and it has that sort of like, you know, old school look to it, but I really do think the Preppy is the way to go. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Also, if you're a big Varsity fan, I'd love to hear from you and figure out what I'm missing about this thing, but I really do think the Preppy is such a great option. Thanks for watching.